There we are. Good morning. How's everyone doing? And here comes Jan, just on time.
Michael.
Good morning, Jan. How do you do?
Good morning. Good. What about you?
Excellent. Excellent indeed.
You had a good weekend?
Yeah, it was a really good time. I got to game with my friends a bit, so
Mm-hmm.
we played board games in person for the first time in quite some time.
Yeah. Or chess and things like that.
No, we're not playing chess. We one of our favorite games right now is called the Night Cage. So it's this uh, it's a cooperative game where you're all trapped in a maze, and all you have is a single candle, so you can just see the maze around you. And as you move through the maze, it illuminates more corridors, but the ones behind you disappear. And if you were to
Okay.
go back there, they would be different. Um, so, uh, so yeah, everybody has to find a key, get to a gate, and escape the maze. But there are creatures roaming around and trying to
It's
extinguish your
something like
candles.
an escape room.
Yeah. Except it's just played on a board, not like real immersive. Although we did play
Yeah.
it this time, since we were in person and we didn't have to play the online version. This time we had uh, actual electronic candles, and so in the game, when your candle goes out, you have to turn your candle off, and you played it in the dark with the spooky music going on. It was kind of fun. And then my friend's wife comes home and she's like, "What are you guys doing? We're playing a game."
It has nothing to do with this movies, The Saw.
No, nope,
No. Okay.
nope,
I
not
like that one.
not that
I
dark.
like that one. As long as it's a movie. Yeah? I
Yeah,
wouldn't
yeah.
want that to be real. Yeah. But so your next step will be to put that in as a distributed game on the Jinaga platform.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah, when we played online, we use the tabletop simulator, which is
Hmm.
basically a physics engine that you can play board games with. Um, but yeah, that'd be kind of fun to actually encode the rules of a game and then make that distributed. But yeah,
Yeah.
as you know, chess is one of the examples I use all the time when presenting examples of games that could be distributed like that. And of course, there is some chess news happening in the world too. The World Chess Championship is ongoing. Over halfway through with the tournament now,
Didn't
and
know that.
yeah, yeah. And yesterday's game was absolutely fantastic. So Magnus Carlsen is the defending champion, and and yeah, he found a yeah, he basically played a flawless game, and his opponent Jan. Well, his opponent is also named Jan. I can't remember how to pronounce his name, but yeah, made a blunder, which at this level, seeing a blunder on the board. If it's just me watching the game, I wouldn't even know that it was a blunder. But then people are saying, "Oh yeah, well he attacked the bishop. He didn't need to." And Magnus just said, "Okay, well, I'm going to leave that bishop hanging. Right now, it's about pawns. I'm going to go after this pawn here, threaten back rank. Well, not back rank. He already had place for his king to go, but threaten a check to pick up another pawn." And I'll get your bishop eventually, but the activity of the queen is what's important right now. So that's what we're focusing on. Don't be attacking my bishop. But yeah, it was fun. So yeah, Magnus Carlsen is now up 2 games, uh,
Hmm.
and that's a pretty bad position for the uh, you know, for Jan to be trying to
Yeah.
eke out some kind of a win. So
I mean, it's amazing how these guys, how they can really keep track of everything and work so many levels further.
mm-hmm.
Uh, go for strategy.
Yeah, and the really deep and interesting part of this game was actually before the blunder. It was the opening, which they played a very niche opening. So it's the sort of opening that you have to have studied it in order to really know it's not one of your main ones. And clearly they both did, and Jan actually pulled out a kind of a novelty. It wasn't a brand new move in this opening, but it was very rarely played. And to see that kind of a novelty at the World Championship, it's just like, wait a minute, what's going on? People are usually a lot more conservative than that. But then Magnus thought it through for like 40 minutes and then found the correct continuation. It's like, and it was deep. It was some deep thinking in order to get there. He's amazing.
Yeah. So you still found time to document the database structure.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I wanted to make sure that that we had a good roadmap to start with as we're building up storage and retrieval, executing pipelines against the database and everything. So yeah, I went back through the not just the Jinaga.js database, but also kind of reaching back to the correspondence database.
Yeah, because you didn't limit to the edges and the facts. You also had there, where was it? You had the ancestors and the whole structure there.
Yes. Yeah. So comparing this to the Jinaga.js database, Jinaga.js has fewer tables. This is a total of 7 whopping tables, and Jinaga.js has 4. Yeah, and so the additional tables are really around optimization of query and load. So so the kind of starting with the fact type and the role. Those are not tables that I kept in Jinaga.js, but they are tables that were in correspondence. So I kind of brought them back.
Okay.
So in Jinaga.js, the name of the fact and the name of the role appear within the edge table. So you basically end up joining on strings and doing where clauses on strings,
which is not so efficient.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I originally made that decision going from correspondence to Jinaga.js to take out these integer placeholders, and I was thinking about the correctness of the insert, because in order to work with these, you do have to make sure that you do a select insert operation within a transaction so that you can use the foreign key, and that was something that I was thinking. You know what? If you're under heavy load, that could actually cause transactions to fail that shouldn't have failed. If you've got 2 transactions that are trying to insert a fact of the same type for the very first time, then they could get into a deadlock. One of them gets rolled back, and but then really thinking about it and observing the behavior of the Jinaga.js query, I was like, that's a small risk to exchange for just really improving the query performance. So brought them back.
Okay, I remember where I saw it. It was in the pull requests.
Yes. Yeah.
There's one commit here. Yeah, I have it in front of me now. So I have fact type, role, fact, edge, ancestor, user and signature. But okay, user signature, that was in the Jinaga.js also.
Yes. Yes, and those are almost exactly the same as Jinaga.js, because the key store is intended to be separable from the fact store. So far, I haven't deployed it that way, but that's the intent, is that you should be able to have a whole bunch of nodes out there running the substrate that are just storing facts, so they're all about the graph, and then a few trusted servers that are the ones that people sign into, and that's their key store. And in fact, the key store doesn't even have to be part of the decision substrate. They could be completely separate types of servers.
Okay. Before we we get into this structure, I've been putting a lot of time. Sometimes I think wasting time, but on the other hand, it's learning. It's teaching me a lot into the database. Wait, let me share that again. Because when it comes to async and await, including the functional structure and including the lambda expressions and your code, then my head it must be like a chess game. Wait, live share. Oh yeah, and I got back. Remembered the mat problem from last week, which I forgot. I found it back. I looked up the documentation, but let's do that after this sharing. So then copy the link. I can just put it in the general channel. Okay, it's in the general channel.
All right.
Do you see it?
Yes.
Live share window. I see you there as recent contact as well.
Okay, and it should be. All right, it should be opening now.
Don't appear yet as part. Yeah.
There we are.
As joined. So then you can see that there is nothing to see. Okay, so actually I'm in this connection factory. I saw this nice structure in Jinaga.js. So I say, okay, let's maintain that. But perhaps that was a very bad decision, because there. So, okay, the first one, the width, that width function in Jinaga.js, I made it width connection. Why did you call it width? Because the other one, the second one, was with transaction.
Yeah, I'm using the with prefix to basically mean that I'm going to give you a callback. I'm going to give you a lambda, and yeah, I need you to give me something, a connection, a transaction, and I'm going to do something with it. And then when I'm done, then you can have it back. So it's just a resource lifetime pattern.
Yeah, but then why width and why not with connection? Because in that first one, what you really do is open a connection, close a connection.
Oh, okay. I think I misunderstood the question. So the first one was not called with transaction. It was just called with.
You had with, and that was the one that created the connection, and then the second one was with transaction.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which was actually, yeah.
No, yeah. This is more consistent. Yeah. This is better. It was probably just I did the connection first and didn't think that I would be using that convention for something else. So that's probably what happened.
Yeah. Okay. So if I just open that connection, not sure yet, because I find if you go and look up about SQLite, you find all types of opinions. But so here, I just create the connection on the spot, and I will close the connection on the spot. It might be that we better keep the connection open all the time, but we can still change that later.
Yeah, it's easy enough.
So this one is just getting in the callback function, which uses SQLite async connection. And so it's just calling this callback with an await, so an async there. And in the finally we just close it. Yeah.
Yep.
That looks fine to me.
Yep, I think so.
But then we come to the transaction. There we have again a callback, which will be, for example, store a record or whatever, store records or delete records. Then we use the connection, which gets the connection from here below, which gets a lambda function.
Yeah.
But then I've been having a trouble with the sync and the async connection because it was complaining. So in fact,
I think I see it. Well, no. No, actually,
right.
actually, you got lucky. But yeah, go ahead. I thought that I saw the answer before you.
I'm always lucky. I'm always lucky, but it still doesn't work, I guess.
Yeah. So the thing that I noticed is that you're not awaiting run in transaction async. And so to await it, you would make this async, and then that would make this task returning. But it's already task returning, and that's where you're getting lucky. Is that it's really just passing that task through. So it's synchronously calling run in transaction async and then returning that task. So it's doing the right thing anyway.
Now explain that on 10 levels lower,
right.
then I can understand it.
So step one is this is an async function, so we should really have the await there. But of course, to have await, this needs to be async, and so that means that now this lambda is a function that returns a task because it's async and we're awaiting it. We've got an await inside of it.
And that is this task.
That one basically matches this signature, so it's going to return task of T.
Because it's inside. Yeah.
Yeah. Although, this is interesting. Okay. Run in transaction async. Okay, this might actually be the thing. Run a transaction async. It takes an action, so it isn't expecting to return any kind of result. But here we're talking about a task of T. So T has to be some kind of a result type for the task. T cannot be void. It's kind of funny in TypeScript it could, but in C# it can't. And so there's a set of parallel types that you could use for things that don't return values, or we could just turn it into a task of int, and then reuse that. Task of T. Okay, well, so now the next thing is T. Okay. T's not int. So the next thing is here's callback. It's going to return task of T. We're going to await it. but run in transaction async is expecting an action on a SQLite connection and just returns a task, so it doesn't take the result of that action. Is there an alternative to run in transaction async that does return the results? Because yeah, that is incorrect. We really want to do something like that, but we want run in transaction async to help us out there, and we want it to. Oh,
because even there,
yeah, that needs to be.
One of the problems I had was run in transaction async. At a certain moment, they told me you need a sync and not an async connection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because here I have an async connection, here not. And that's where I got completely stuck.
Okay. Yeah, that is something that I am unfamiliar with. So,
And then in the end, I was wondering, because apparently SQLite is just using a task run around all of his synchronous features.
Oh, okay. Well, that doesn't help then.
wouldn't it be better to just open everything synchronously and then on the highest level add that task run?
Yeah, it's basically where you end up, although I really don't like doing that myself, because that forces the runtime to create a thread for you, even if the threads just simply end up waiting on results to come back.
Because then the Jinaga library would then create another thread.
Yeah, which is definitely something that I don't want to do inside of a library. Yeah, so the whole idea of test.run, test.run immediately starts a thread at that point to manage the asynchronous code behind it. If you allow it to be asynchronous into that, then it could actually perform those actions, get to a point where now it's just awaiting a signal from the operating system, like a packet coming in on a socket, and then it never had to allocate a thread in order to get there, and then it'll be able to use whatever task continuation context the application wants to use. So I think it's best practice within a library to always call .configure await anytime you want to await something, and that way the application can choose what kind of continuation contact it's in, which is going to be pretty important here because sometimes it's going to be WPF, sometimes it's going to be XAML, Xamarin, sometimes it'll be Blazor, and so those are all going to have different modes of thread management. Yeah. So, but if all it's doing with the async class is just doing a task.run.
If that is true, because I read it on the internet, I didn't go myself check the source code of SQLite, so that might be a legacy situation. That meanwhile they changed it.
Well, it's worth a shot. So I am going to share real quick, and we can see if that makes sense. So now we are talking about Okay, so we're talking about
Yeah, that's the one.
this. Okay. Choose the right scene so we can read. All right, so first of all, Proclarum, Frank Kruger, brilliant guy. Got an opportunity to meet him once. He's also a very friendly guy. And so, yeah, he's a mobile developer, co-host of Merge Conflict with James Montemagno. And so this is like one of his early projects, but he still keeps using it all the time, and other people do too, so he still maintains it. So I'm up here, I'm just going to hit dot. That way it'll load a nice familiar interface around it. Okay, so we've got SQLite Async, and then when we do something like our SQLite Async connection, oops, there we go. So we've got oh, we can do all sorts of operations. Begin in transaction async. Yeah, so we return a transaction async that does all the stuff. So it's got the commit and the rollback on exception. So that pattern's all taken care of for us in there. So connection begin transaction, I notice, is not asynchronous. There's nothing awaiting it. In fact, I don't see... Yeah, there's nothing in here that's asynchronous. In fact, the action that's coming in is just a SQLite connection, as you were pointing out.
Yeah.
So yeah, certainly by the time we get here, we've done a begin transaction. Actually, I think I remember Frank talking about this on the show not too long ago, where he tried to be all correct and fancy about it, and there was either a deadlock that arose, or there was locking deep inside of SQLite itself that meant that he wasn't. Either it was going to to fail in some situations, or he just wasn't getting the benefit, and he didn't want to take the risk. It was one of those two. So I think that might be the thing we're running into. So if we go to transaction async or transact async, okay, so we're just calling the method transact async. There we go. We start a new task, and then just do the thing. Okay. So yeah, and here he's taking control and doing very specific options around the task creation. I'm not really sure what that does, but yeah, it definitely looks deliberate. Okay, so
the factory start new is actually starting a new thread.
Yes, I believe that is the case. So yeah, I would say we want to use these because Frank Kruger made some deliberate decisions here, and we could research those decisions, see, do they make sense? If so, do them ourselves, but we'll basically end up writing factory, start new, deny child attach, and all that stuff. So yeah, probably best to just go ahead and use the async that's built in here, even though it does basically wrap the entire transaction in a thread.
Okay. Yeah. And Then why was he putting in the previous step? He was just putting in the normal connection and not the async connection.
Let's see. And this, it's an alt back. Yeah, left arrow. Okay.
Yeah. See there, an action with us.
Right. Yes, and the reason for that is that if he gave you a SQLite async connection, which is the class that we're in right now, you would have access to all of the async methods, and so within that thread, you would end up spawning another thread. So it's like, okay, we've already got you isolated. You're in a thread that's going to work on that transaction. And now from that point forward, just use the synchronous methods.
Okay, so just to spin off a transaction, it goes on another thread.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever we do within that transaction will already be on that other thread. So
right.
No use to... All right. So that means for our code here, so with transaction, then we don't need... So back. So this one needs to be a normal connection, SQLite connection.
Right. Yep. Yeah, so the thing that I'm not seeing is, do we have one that could return a value? So we've got run in transaction async, returns task.
One that returns a task of T.
Yeah. So there's execute async, that just calls executes. Well, and that one's specifically returning task of int. Yeah, so I think with this naming convention, we're going to want to find something that has the word query in it. So is there a query that's got transaction in it? I'm only seeing run in transaction. So this has to... Oh, well, actually, wait a minute. Transact async. Yeah, you know what? The answer is right there. So if we use transact async instead of run in transaction async. So basically, is that true? Wait a minute. Yeah, transact async is returning task of T, and here we're saying give us objects. The object that it's returning is always null. So basically, what we can do is take this this same code, but
put
now
it in our...
Yeah, this becomes our code. And now instead of returning null, this we store the result of the action, which now becomes a func of T, SQLite connection, comma T, and we return it. Yep.
Yeah. Can you copy and paste it from there? Because I cannot copy it.
Oh, yeah.
To the...
Okay. All right, so we've got the connection.
We can just put it in another method, no? And call it from...
Yeah, I think this is going to end up being exactly what we want to do here. So, so this is actually, so not here, but this is on the connection. T, and so that's the async connection. This is the synchronous connection. Yeah. So probably use some naming here to make that a little bit well, I was trying to get my rename refactor. Async connection is coming in here. So we're using that async connection here. And then just to be entirely clear, this is the synchronous connection.
Yeah.
And that's in there. And so in there we begin transaction. We will store the results, which is the result of the callback, which now is okay. Right. We can't await because we already spent our async coin. Now we're in sync land, so it's really this that we want. I'm going to give you a synchronous connection. You're going to synchronously use it and give me back a result. So no task by the time we get there. So that's going to change things upstream a little bit.
Yeah.
But so we begin the transaction, we call back, we return the result, and we roll back and we throw. Okay, yeah, so that's ultimately what we're trying to go for.
Why are we still having this squiggle? It's not going
to... yeah, I'm not seeing any of the squiggles at my side.
That's bizarre. Because this is sort of SQLite async connection. It's not going to contain a definition for transact async.
Oh. Okay. This is not a public method. Well. Frank. Why do you not make it public? Okay, well, is there...
We can make it public and recompile it, but...
that's true, yeah.
And that method, is there anything inside that we can not reach? Otherwise, we can just copy that one.
Yeah, I think so. So let's go ahead and copy that out there for right now. We'll see if we can refactor that a bit later. So we are now doing the transact async. So this is intended to be a method on async connection, but now we've pulled it outside, so we're going to make it a static method, and we're going to pass in the SQLite async connection. Okay. Yeah, thank you. All right, so we've got the async connection going in there. Now it's static, and so we can use that. So we're starting the new.
Now we're starting
this one right here. Yeah. And is that's also
private?
Private.
And there we give the wiggle again. Not accessible due to protection level.
Yeah, so let's see if we can make our way to the end of this little trail. So if we turn that into a static, now we are trying to get the connection string. Can we get the connection string? Because I'm sure that we can't. This is interesting. We've got an overload. There is a public one that takes a SQLite connection string. Okay. It takes a connection string, but it's also an instance. This one's the private one. Let's see what it's going to take to be able to use the public one. Oh, okay. So yeah, the private one just calls to the
Public to the private.
Okay. And we return the transaction lock, or produce the transaction lock, and return the SQLite connection with lock. So there's the transaction lock coming out. Yeah, so oh, okay. So this underscore connection string right here, unfortunately, I'm not getting the IntelliSense. Oh, yeah, I am getting some IntelliSense. It's a
This one that I defined higher.
Okay.
Up here.
Okay. So that's the string.
So just initialize in the constructor.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I was noticing that in here it's looking for this type SQLite connection string, which looks like we can probably well, I would expect there to be some kind of a parse method or something. You know, there's clearly got to be something that takes that string and turns it into a SQLite connection string. So if that's the thing that we are after, like I would expect to see like a static parse method in here somewhere.
Because there are a lot of options in that connection string.
Yeah. Yeah, and it looks like each one of them takes a database path, which that's a path to the file, but it's not a connection string. So that might be something that that we change coming into this, is that we start with the path to the file, get into the world of SQLite connection string as early as possible, and then keep that around. And that way we've got that for when we want to use it here. Okay, but there is a public version of this. Get connection and transaction lock. So let's go back here. Get connection and transaction lock on SQLite. SQLite connection pool. Okay, so that one's not available to us. All right. So yeah, it's really this one that we want to do. Because we've already got, this is interesting. Okay, we've already got a SQLite connection in our hands, and then we're trying to get connection and transaction lock. So it's going back to a shared pool and getting one from there. Yeah, I think this is going to take some digging to see if we can find our way through that.
I find it amazing that for library that has been downloaded 7 million times, that there are no. I've looked a little bit and I didn't find any example which was. I only found people struggling.
Well, that's not good news at all. Well, I think yeah, there's certainly a way through this. And at the very least, it could be that we use this in order to learn how to use SQLite, and then we end up basically starting with this code as an example, but then using it in the way that we want to use it. I suspect, though, that there is just some knowledge that's built into the library that we don't yet understand about SQLite, and Frank has kind of figured that out along the way, and so he's trying to expose to us a surface area that's going to give us the benefit of that knowledge if we just know how to use the surface area correctly. So yeah, I think this is a take a step back moment.
Mm-hmm. You said something about a talk by Frank. Do you remember which talk that was?
Yeah, so it wasn't like a user group talk. This was an episode of Merge Conflict, and I'm afraid I don't remember what the primary topic of that episode was. That primary topic might have actually been SQLite.net, but I do recall that SQLite Dash Net comes up somewhat frequently, even when they're talking about something else. So this might have been a talk about changes to from .NET 5 to .NET 6 or something like that. So no, I don't think that was the case. That would be too recent.
Is that the website mergeconflict.fm?
Yes, that's the one.
Okay. They only have 287 episodes, so
yeah.
we will find out.
Yeah.
Right. You should be able to find it.
Mm-hmm. But,
perhaps there is some good background on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think the things that I've learned is that we want SQLite Dash Net to manage the thread boundaries on our behalf, because I think that we're going to end up in the same, trying to solve the same problems that Frank already solved if we were to take that on. And I think what I'm also seeing is that we want to, so here with the with transaction and the with connection, this is basically me in Jinaga.js adding those wrappers and adding that API myself around the raw Postgres driver for JavaScript, and it looks like SQLite Dash Net is intended to be that wrapper, so it's intended to have its own its own API surface area. That surface area, as we can see here with the transactasync code, or the run in transaction code, it's already set up to be the callback mechanism. So so it already creates a connection and gives it to you in your callback, and begins the transaction, cleans it up, all that stuff. So I think what we really want to do is rather than write our own layer on top of it, go ahead and use the SQLite Dash Net layer.
Directly, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think what we'll find is that it seems to be optimized for using the connection pool mechanism. And I say that because as we were kind of chasing ourselves around in a circle here, we ended up with, even though we have a connection, this is still going back to a connection pool in order to get a real connection. So I'm thinking that maybe what's happening here is that this connection object is just kind of a
wrapper around a connection pool. Yeah.
Yeah, which seems backwards from the way that I would usually think about it, but yeah, we've got this shared connection pool. It seems to be popping up quite a bit, so so could be.
Perhaps I should dig a little bit deeper into the library to understand it, because I still feel the SQLite is very nice. Is a very nice database. That could be of great value to Jinaga.
Yeah, I definitely think so.
Because it is so small and so easy. Easy.
Well, once we get to the point where we understand how to use it correctly, then it will be easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it's amazing. But Frank has been probably for years on it, so he must have good reasons to do it that way.
Yes. Yes, I think so. So we will trust that he's learned a few things along the way, and lots of people have had success with it. And he does try to make sure that he doesn't break anybody as he maintains it. So I think I do remember with correspondence. I got correspondence up and working, and then Microsoft added async await to the language, and it's like, oh, okay, let me see if I can just kind of put that in there, and it was just a complete mess. So yeah, I should have at that point just started over and rewritten correspondence with async in mind. But I learned so much along the way that, yeah, I guess basically Jinaga.net is that. It's like, okay, I think I've learned async await now, and I've learned a lot about historical modeling that I didn't think of before, and so yeah, this is that rewrite.
Yeah, actually, when I saw that your code, I had to go to the papers again, async and await. What were the details? How did it behave again? So many things that you have to remember.
Yeah, there was even at that time that I was learning things about async and await. I thought that I'd figured something out, so I created something called the awaitable critical section. So I was like, okay, I want to be able to use my lock way of thinking inside of my code, but there's this new async await thing. So how do I asynchronously lock some code and enter a critical section? And so I wrote up a blog post, put some code out there, and in fact, Scott Hanselman noticed that he added a link to it in his blog, and then Stephen Tobe. So yeah, you know who he is. He got back with Scott and said, you know what, this isn't doing the right way. Here, let me. And at that time, Stephen Tobe was already working on a series of blog posts. He just hadn't published the first one yet on how to correctly do synchronization primitives using async and await. So it's like, okay, yeah. Stop that one. that one's bad. Here's how you do this, and then he continued. So it was that was pretty cool. It was a real learning opportunity.
Now, I still find the best overview, and I always keep going back to that, is on Pluralsight. There are some guides on async programming. I printed it out, but I don't have the name of the guy who wrote it. It's not there. But there are several guides, articles, and that's really nicely written and easy to understand. It's on my level. But if you look at the articles of Stephen Tope, it's not always easy to understand.
Yeah,
and there is
so I'm
this,
seeing Nate Cook.
Yeah, that's the one.
All
That's the
right.
one. He has a. It's not a single. I think it's how many? 5 or 7 articles written between the 24th of January 2019 until 2020 somewhere.
Very nice.
Just the basics, but it's understandable for me, so it should be for everybody.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm. So that's that's a reason to be a Pluralsight subscriber. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. All right, so
Yeah,
well,
with
did a little bit
with
of
Black,
exploration today.
yeah, with Black Friday, they had some nice promotions,
Ah, yes.
and so I say, okay, give me that promotion for the renewal. They say we cannot give it to you. I said, why not? Yeah, because you're on a legacy subscription.
Ah,
But you can go to the new standard. I say, and what's inside? Yeah, all Michael's courses were not inside. I say, okay, forget it. They say, yeah, but don't worry. You can stay on the legacy subscription, and then you will still get the promotion next year. I'm not sure whether they understood that, but okay, the price was right. So I say, they put it on a mail, and I say, okay, we will see in January when they renew.
okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
It's amazing that your courses are not in the standard. They are all in the
Right.
premium.
Yes. Yeah, that was actually something that yeah. So Pluralsight has regular communications with the authors, and so that was something that that I saw coming a couple of years ago now. Yeah, I think is when they first started talking about that with us, and yeah, what they're kind of going for is the body of courses that are going to to help the the most people that are kind of getting started, getting they basically want to differentiate the two offerings for the individual learner versus the enterprise learner, and the way that that they organize their catalog and their content, starting about 4 or 5 years ago, was really targeted toward the enterprise learner, and so that's when they were releasing the assessments and the paths, and so really organizing it around a CTO having having some visibility into how his team is learning, and then this is basically okay. We've focused on them, but now it seems maybe to the exclusion of getting new people onto the platform that are not part of an enterprise, and so that's what this was really about. And so yeah, all of my stuff was targeted toward that enterprise audience, because that's that's really kind of the level that that I want to teach at in the first place, and it's where Pluralsight was focusing, and it's still making some good money there. So so yeah, the content that would be more beginner focused and more general purpose would be in the standard subscription.
Anyway, in the legacy subscription, everything is included. So
Yeah.
as long as they allow me to stay there, it's fine. All right, I will dive a little bit deeper into that and try to find a solution.
Sounds good. And yeah, I think I'm going to I'm going to continue the documentation of the schema and what we're going to do on saving a new fact and what inserts need to be made, loading a fact, which is going back through the transitive closure and grabbing all of the data that's necessary for sending that graph down to the client. And then the query pipeline, that's going to be the fun one. So turn the pipeline into a SQL query.
Going to be a difficult one.
Yeah.
Okay, Michael. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jan. And I will
see you
talk
next
to you next
week.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.